Bonjour and welcome back to Blumera Podcast. I'm your host, Brianne, and I'm here to answer the question, is it ever okay to joke about domestic violence? But first, I want to offer a trigger warning. This episode is a part of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, created in honor of survivors everywhere. I am a survivor myself, and while I don't share graphic details of my story, I do speak honestly about abuse, trauma, and even some of the tactics like Darvo that often accompany them. I know that not everyone may be in a place to hear about these topics right now. There are certainly times when I'm not in a place to hear about them, so there is absolutely no judgment here. You can pause here to do something to care for yourself. Or you can open your podcast app, tap Blumera Podcast, and scroll to another episode that feels safer for your nervous system today. Your healing and comfort matter more than finishing any episode. Take what you need, skip what you need. Your well-being comes first. Now, back to the question at hand. Is it okay to make jokes about domestic violence? Okay, I'm actually embarrassed to admit this, but I once found myself Googling, is it ever okay to make jokes about domestic violence? Me, somebody who has actually experienced DV, Googled whether or not it was okay to joke about the very thing that has traumatized me for years. I share this to show how confusing these situations can feel. Long story short, I found myself at a party where some asshole was making jokes about violence against women and saying absolutely undeniably racist and sexist comments to all of the women sitting around a table at this party. I saw some looks of annoyance or disgust from them, secondhand cringes and stuff like that, but no one joined me when I spoke up and challenged his statements. In fact, the first person to actually speak up was my friend who had brought me there, and it was to tell me to let it go and that he doesn't really mean it and that he's such a good guy. That is how confusing these situations can feel when you're in them, how easy it is to find yourself in that situation, and how convincing others can be around you. I've been there. Let me save you time sharing what I learned about this answer, because after a lot of researching, reflecting, unpacking, and learning, I'm here to report back to you, someone who maybe finds themselves wondering the same questions. If you found yourself in the same situation, wondering why everyone is trying to convince you that these jokes are funny, or maybe you clicked on this episode to learn something new, I want to be your first destination. So the answer? The answer is obviously no. No, it's not okay for you to joke about violence against women. It doesn't matter how many examples you see of exactly that on TV, or how many people at the party laugh. It's not funny. It never was. And it doesn't matter that it was labeled as a comedy show on a popular streaming service. It's not okay. And if you need points for your argument, I have a whole list here in this episode. But first, I want to talk about a few of the basics, like where it happens and what it looks like. Domestic violence jokes rarely show up on a stage with a spotlight. But let's be honest, we've still seen it happen. These types of jokes and situations often show up across a table, at family dinners, staff meetings, barbecues, game nights, parties. They often arrive in disguise, a quick one-liner, a dark sense of humor, accompanied with a smirk that invites everyone to laugh along. Sarah Ahmed writes about this in one of the books that truly helped me heal from that experience, The Feminist Killjoy. She shares about how it usually starts around a table, that feminist killjoys are willing to get in the way of happiness to create a better world. They are willing to speak different truths, cause a disruption, create an intervention. Feminist killjoys will not be silenced, confined, or controlled. As cultural critics, philosophers, poets, and activists, feminist killjoys often start their work young, at home around the kitchen table, then later around the tables of institutions and other larger tables. This is the moment the feminist killjoy shows up. Maybe it's you, maybe it's me. It's the quiet voice that cuts through the forced laughter and says, "That's not funny. That's not okay to say." And then the next moment can be most accurately described through a Taylor Swift song. Who's Afraid of Little Old Me, where she talks about crashing your party like a record scratch. It's also the person who raises an eyebrow and refuses to give the laugh that person is looking for. It's the person who changes the subject or simply gets up and leaves, making the silence louder than the punchline. The setting can be anywhere. A workplace happy hour where someone cracks a just kidding about hitting a partner. A family holiday where a relative disguises control or jealousy as just how relationships work. The pattern is the same. Someone with more social power takes aim at people with less, and the room is asked to play along. The feminist killjoy refuses that invitation. And when that happens, remember, it's not about killing joy. It's about protecting dignity. Yours, mine, the dignity of every survivor whose story deserves to be respected, not set up as some punchline. And you know, one of the most painful side effects of abuse isn't just what happens during the abuse. It's what happens after. When an abuser uses tactics like DARVO, which stands for deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. They're not just dodging accountability. They're rewriting reality. They're saying your memory is wrong, that your feelings are wrong, that you are wrong. We'll dig into DARVO more, so stay tuned for that. But think about the impact that can have. The people at this party, they think it's harmless, but to a survivor, it's incredibly confusing and frustrating. It's like the world is trying to gaslight you. Everybody in the room is trying to gaslight you. And little by little, it kind of chips away at your self-trust. When everyone else is laughing, when your abuser or the person making jokes about it says you're overreacting, when people you trusted tell you to let it go, or society tells you to just shrug it off, you might start to kind of wonder, am I too sensitive? Did I imagine it or make it up? Maybe it really wasn't that bad. Well, I'm here to tell you that isn't overthinking. That is what chronic invalidation does to the brain. It trains you to question your own body's signals, your fear, your anger, your memories. But here's the truth. Your body and your intuition are not the enemy. That discomfort that you feel when somebody cracks a joke about DV, that is your internal alarm saying something is wrong. An important part of healing is reclaiming that alarm, saying my experiences are real, my reactions make sense, and their denial doesn't erase my truth. So if you personally have felt yourself doubting, pause, breathe, and remind yourself, I witnessed what I witnessed. My feelings are evidence, and it makes sense that I feel this way. Every time you choose to believe yourself, you take back that power. And here's that list full of reasons it is not funny to joke about domestic violence. But first of all, I just want to highlight that it says a lot about your character that you don't find these jokes funny. Give yourself some credit for being empathetic, understanding, and aware of the issues that too many victims of abuse face. The first reason is punching down. Punching down is a comedy term for when someone with more power, privilege, or social capital makes a joke at the expense of someone with less. It's a cheap shot because the person targeted has fewer resources or platforms to respond, and the audience often shares the comedian's privilege, so the harm goes unchecked. Domestic violence jokes are a textbook example of this. They target survivors, people who have already been harmed, silenced, or not believed, and they side with the abusers and the person in power. The punch in punching down lands on those who are statistically more likely to be women, queer folk, disabled people, or other members of marginalized communities. Within professional comedy, punching down is widely recognized as lazy and unfunny. Great comic punch up, challenging institutions, systems, or people with more power than they have. Jokes that punch across, like teasing people on equal footing, can work when everyone has the same agency to laugh back. So when someone cracks a DV joke, they're not being edgy. They're reinforcing a hierarchy where survivors are the butt of the joke and violence is minimized. That isn't clever satire. It's cruelty disguised as humor. And the second reason, it desensitizes people to these terrible realities. When I was being abused, I was often questioned about my bruises, especially in regards to my partner at the time. Jokes were kind of the easiest way to deflect, to kind of throw somebody off of the scent by addressing it outright, if that makes sense. This could be true to the person who's making the jokes. Maybe they're covering abuse in their own lives, or maybe they are the abuser. Think about it. If someone questions bruises in a group setting and the victim brushes it off with a joke, or maybe worse, is met with a joke, it normalizes harm. Jokes that should feel shocking begin to feel ordinary. When we laugh, we shrink that moral gravity of violence. That makes it easier for people to dismiss it, to minimize it, or to ignore actual harm. And as I mentioned, it targets people who already have less power. These types of jokes can re-traumatize survivors. For someone who's lived it, that joke can feel like another violation. Laughter around that violence triggers memory, shame, hypervigilance, and distrust. That physical reaction that you experience is valid evidence, not proof that you are too sensitive. It can also protect predators by kind of reshaping the story for them. When the room laughs, the person who made the jokes gets social cover or protection. The focus shifts from harm to the joke teller's reputation, which actually kind of mirrors Darvo-like dynamics. The abuser's actions are minimized, and then the survivor's reaction is delegitimized. Another reason it's not okay to joke about things like this is because, seriously, ask yourself, what's funny about DV? I'm not asking to be clever here. This is a real prompt for reflection, for therapy work, research, journaling, or accountability. If you laugh at those kind of jokes, sit with why you laughed. And if you didn't laugh, notice how your body reacts. So what can we do? You can stand up in safe spaces. You have to imagine someone who can make jokes about violence against women is also someone who is willing to enact violence against women. Someone who jokes about it is possibly capable of doing it. There have been times where I have stood up and been respected, and there have been times, unfortunately, where I have not been respected. Do you remember the story in the beginning about when I stood up against jokes about violence against women at that party? Well, I'm sure you can predict by my tone that it did not end well. As soon as he got the chance, the good guy that was making hateful comments assaulted me for speaking up. So I can't tell you what the right thing to do is. That is for you to decide, to honor how you feel and do what you can to remain safe in situations that feel unsafe. I can tell you that I don't regret it. I'd do it again. But remember, that's coming from a survivor's perspective, someone who was able to walk out of that house and lived to tell the tale. I have an episode coming up on speaking up and what it's like when you're not believed or heard, and also on reporting abuse. I want to hear from you if you have any questions or suggestions for those episodes, because your voice matters here. I have a very short community survey where you can send me a quick message and let me know what you think. That link will be in the episode description for you. Another thing that you can do is remove yourself from the space. It is something that I kind of wish I would have done. I have to remind myself, you don't want to fit into spaces where violence against women is found as a funny joke. It honestly is going to take more effort to go against the grain and be challenged for your beliefs and values. And trust me, giving space to people like that in your life and in your circle isn't worth it. They are taking up space that you could use to care for yourself more, or space for new connections that don't laugh at jokes about violence against women. There are a lot of us who know it's not funny. Just come find one of us, and we'd welcome another friend like you in our circle. If you do stand up, I'm very proud of you, even if it didn't turn out the way you want. I spoke up and was met with sexual assault, even if it ended in pain and trauma for me. I'm proud of myself for standing up, for showing all of the women in the room that that was not okay, even if they didn't see it at the time. And if you can't stand up, I also get it. Being silent in an unsafe position can be a safe thing to do. don't know if you can change someone who makes jokes about violence against women. I personally don't want to find out. And if I ever find myself in that situation again, I'm certainly acting differently and leaving. Maybe speaking up, but definitely leaving. You may feel bad about not standing up in that moment. I trust that you did what was right for you, and I hope that you begin to trust yourself for that decision as well. There are still safer ways that you can take action. Boundary setting. Use short statements that are low drama. That's not funny to me. Please don't joke about violence. Or domestic violence isn't a punchline. I don't find abuse entertaining. I have episodes on setting boundaries that will be linked in the episode description for you. They tell you about how to powerfully say no and set strong boundaries. It also helps to name the impact, not the person. Focus on the behavior and avoid labeling them. You can call them out and say that kind of joke normalizes violence, and that's harmful to any survivors who might be listening. A really good go-to response for situations like that is a curious or like a reflective call-in, if you will. If you get a sense that the person might listen, you could say, "I'm curious, what's funny about someone being hurt?" Put the responsibility back on them to examine their words. If it's more comfortable for you, you can do a private follow-up later on. Sometimes public confrontation doesn't always feel like the best choice and is not always the best choice. If that feels unsafe, you can always follow up with them after the fact. You can just share with them how you felt when you heard that joke. And make sure you check in with anybody else who looked uncomfortable. You can call it out when you see it on the media. You don't even have to leave your house for that one. You can help spread awareness, especially during months like October when it's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. You can also block or end your support for creators or companies who support people who tell these types of jokes. I personally don't want to see that stuff or be in their circles of the internet. I don't want to give them any of my advertising dollars and certainly not any of my personal dollars. Our money is our power, and if we're giving money to companies who are highlighting people who make jokes about this and have been called out and called to the carpet for it, they're not getting my money. They're not getting my support. I recently quit using and purchasing a certain company's products because they partnered with an influencer well known for criticism over his jokes about DV. Put your money where your mouth is because your money is support. You are not wrong for thinking or feeling that it's wrong to joke about violence against women or anyone for that matter. Your feelings are valid. I made this episode because it's the message I needed to hear when I found myself asking this very same question. Your interpretation of this situation deserves to be heard and truly understood. If that's not the response that you were met with, and likely why you are here, I'm really sorry. If you've ever sat through a so-called joke about DV and felt that sharp twist in your gut, you know it isn't just awkward or uncomfortable. It's invalidating and painful. And sometimes when you speak up, the responses can be just as painful. People dismiss what you heard, tell you you're overreacting or being too sensitive, or rush to protect the person who made the comment. That pattern isn't random. We're going to name it. We'll talk about a tactic called DARVO, deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. It's a way that people deflect responsibility and make you doubt your own reality. So if this conversation stirred something in you, stay with me. All of my other episodes and resources that I mentioned in this episode will be linked in the description for you. And if you stayed this long, I just want a second to say thank you if you have ever taken a moment to rate my podcast, write a kind review, leave a comment, or DM'd me to let me know that this podcast has positively impacted you. That is the fuel that keeps me going. Your support means more to me than you even know. I read every DM, comment, and message, and all of it goes straight to my heart. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode.